Good evening, Chelmsford. My name is Joshua Walsh here at the Chelmsford Senior Center for night 2 of Chelmsford's town meeting. I'm filling in for Kelly Beatty tonight, as he cannot be here. Currently, we're through the consent agenda for this annual town meeting, and I've currently been working through Article 8, and we are now going to be starting with Article 9 tonight. We have a bunch of topics that we'll be dealing with. We'll be dealing with sewer additions. There's a few zoning bylaws that are becoming amendments that we're going to be looking at. And then might as well have a few other amendments that might come through. So yes, night 2, we had night 1 go till 11 o'clock, a little past, to accommodate for Articles 27, 28 for Kelly Beatty, new zoning bylaw for streetlights and commercial businesses lights to make sure the glare around them is not as harsh for the residents. In doing so, that ran us a little late, but Kelly was able to present both of his articles and pass them through with no issues. As we continue this night, as you can see, there's a full house. We should be also with a quorum, and we'll be continuing on with Article 9. As you may know, Lawrence McDonald is our new town meeting moderator. He's been doing an excellent job. Some growing pains here and there, but that comes with anything, as anyone's doing it for the first time, such as I. But yeah, anyone can do anything, and it's going to be a good night. So as we wait for the start of the town meeting, we will come back for the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will see what happens. As of right now, there is one amendment to the town meeting warrants that has been submitted. That would be to strike Articles 27 through 34, all the zoning bylaws from the town meeting warrants. That will be something that will come up soon. We're not quite sure when, but that will be dealt with, and we will go through the motions of that process as it comes up. I'm not sure if that will happen at the beginning of the meeting or the end. The presenter will make the motion to make those amendments, and the town meeting will obviously vote on it. We'll see how that goes, but should be a good meeting. Hopefully, we will be ending tonight at a reasonable time, if not going to a third night on next Monday. Feeling here is that we will be done and over with by tonight. And yeah, it's going to be a good night. There's going to be a lot of debate from what we're hearing. And yeah, thank you.
Good evening. Good evening. If everyone could take their places. If everyone could take their places. Seeing that it is 7:30 p.m. on April 30th, 2026, I will reconvene the Chelmsford Town meeting to order. Would you all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, which is going to be led tonight by a scout, Charlotte, from Troop 81. So Charlotte, when you are ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very well done. The proceeds, the contributions from the concessions tonight are going towards fundraising Charlotte is doing so she is able to go to Seabase. If you've ever been in Scouts, you know, right? All right, that taken care of. Let us test our clickers so I can get a quorum count, if you please. And I'm going to play with my new toy. There we go. Look at the timer. Isn't that lovely? I'm going to be honest, I think I hit it very well that I had trouble with the timer. I will attest that we have a quorum. I see 107 total participants. That is more than enough for a quorum. Just to touch base on a few things from the other night, we immediately talked after the meeting to figure out how we can improve a few of the glitches. And Tom from Chelmsford TeleMedia did some programming and rigged up this box for me so that I can start the timer easily for votes. The timer I have here on the podium is good for the presentations and the speakers, but it's very difficult to use for seconds. The new software doesn't have one, but now we do. I also can control the microphones better so there's less feedback. And this box looks great. It says Fisher Price on it, so I think that's appropriate. Tom knew who he was building it for. All right, before we begin, I want to remind everybody that the fire exits, there are 2 excellent fire exits over to my right, 2 fire exits over to my left, and another fire exit in the back of the hall where you got your voting devices. We don't have to talk about protocol and decorum because we covered that at the beginning of the meeting. This is not a new meeting, we're just reconvening. We are going to move to the second consent agenda. As you recall, we have 2 consent agendas, and this one will be for, I am suggesting this one for Articles 35 and 36, but do I have a motion to allow Articles 35 and 36 to be taken? So I heard, and I heard a second. So I have a motion and a second. And now we're going to do this. We're going to do the voting. So if everyone can prepare to vote. Oh, a word about voting. We set the timer for 30 seconds, and the other night, all of the votes happened within 18 seconds. However, does anybody feel strongly that they need more than the 30 seconds for the voting? Well, and if you don't feel strongly about it now and wish to contact me, let me know and we can adjust this. It's a programmable thing. All right, now if we could take a vote on whether or not we can have a consent. This is not voting on the consent agenda. This is allowing me to present a consent agenda. And the voting will start now, please. And that didn't work. Wait a second. There we go.
Hello again, this is Josh Walsh for Chelmsford TeleMedia. What we're doing right now is voting on the second consent agenda. As you remember at the beginning of night one, we did a consent agenda to deal with most of the budgetary items. This would deal with a lot of the fire articles that we have going on for obtaining the building permits, things like that, for, not the building permits, but dealing with the new fire stations and then dealing with
I will stipulate
Road,
that passed.
E911, address changes, things like that, street
5
acceptances.
against, and one
It's more of a
abs-
simplification.
Oops, it just went up to 106. Well, it's only what I read in the papers. Okay, hold. Let me set the other timer, Mr. Cohen, if you could get ready.
You're good. I should have paid attention.
Mr. Cohen, if you please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Paul Cohen, Town Manager. Articles 35 and 36 pertain to town properties. The first one being utility easements for the fire station, and the second one being a street acceptance. Both of these are public work projects. Our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, has worked on both of these projects in a professional manner in terms of advancing the interest. So I'm going to turn the podium over to Christine to discuss
Thank you. So the first article, Article 35, is for utility easements, and these pertain to the two fire stations 3 and 5. These utility easements are required for new electric services to each of these buildings. I think as indicated the other night when we had provided an update, these are new fire stations completely being built from the ground up, and they're going to meet the new stretch code, which means that it's a newly, completely, use of fossil fuels, gas. It is fully electric, also with the solar panels and the geothermal at Station 3. So with having new electric services, that requires a whole new service upgrade, and National Grid requires having easements to bring that service from the street into both of these parcels. Each of the easements will include 2 4-inch conduit encased conduits encased in concrete, 800 amp service at each location. There is an existing gas service at each of these locations. Because we do not need to have gas move, because we're in compliance with the stretch code, the gas will be disconnected at the street, so we'll no longer have a gas service to these 2 buildings. Also, just one clarification, this is an emergency, this is a 24/7 facility, emergency use, so we do have to have backup, and that backup is we will have a diesel generator, so there is no reliance on gas at all. And so with this is just a request for the easements to be able to do these projects, which are really underway in the next month. And Article 36 is another, or instead of an easement, this is a roadway acceptance. So each year we look at our inventory of streets, and streets that are accepted town roads are able, we do have a reimbursement through the state through Chapter 90. And so we do look at our roads to see if there's any way to make it an accepted roadway to increase those funds that we get back from the state. In looking at our database, Proctor Road, which is surprising, Proctor Road is an arterial roadway, and it was not accepted. And we were before the town meeting just a couple years ago, or last year with Parkhurst. So this is the last arterial roadway that we have found that has not been accepted. There are other streets in town, more local, that remain private ways, but we will continue to look at that database. This really being probably the last largest request before town meeting. So the request is to have Proctor Road be accepted as a public right-of-way. We have plowed it, maintained it over the years. It's just looking at our records, it was never accepted as a public right-of-way. The existing roadway limits remain. We also, given the condition of the roadway, this is on our paving list for this year, so we wanted to have this roadway accepted so we can utilize some of those Chapter 90 funds as we go to repave this roadway. The entire limits are it's 1.52 miles of roadway between Acton Road and the town line with Carlisle. And just given the condition, this is a reclamation, so really full, not just the pavement itself, but the subbase will also be restored as well. And this is this year's paving plan, so I don't have an exact month, but it will be this year, summer or fall. And this is a plan just showing we had a surveyor go through and meet with all the meets and bounds and prepare this plan for this acceptance. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 35 and 36.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Articles 35 and 36, both by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions. Debate.
Christine McNamara, Precinct 8. I just had a question from one of the residents on Proctor Road to direct to you, and maybe a little bit off topic. The question was whether the road, after being paved, would be lined, and if so, how it would be lined.
Oops.
Hello? That's better. Sorry.
No, I think that he had, anyway, it's good now.
Okay. I will have to look into that specifically. Typically, if pavement markings are there, we will put them back. If they weren't there, we'll have to look at it. Also have to look if it is a historical roadway, and I have to check our list. If it's a historical roadway, we typically do not. So I will have to look into that, and I can confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Badri Upadhyappan, Precinct 11. When was the last time Proctor was paved or sections of it were paved?
I would have to say going back well over 15, 20 years ago, some even 25 plus years.
And it will be a full reclamation down to, I don't know, 12 inch, to 4 inches, 5 inches, 6 inches,
So
full graveling?
so a reclamation is, what it does is it's a blade that really grinds up the pavement subbase and goes into the subgrade, so it goes down 8 to 12 inches, creates a new subbase that's compacted, creating a new subbase, and then all new pavement on top, which is at least 4 inches.
And it's engineered to make sure that the drainage from the water goes on the appropriate side and along the road? Okay.
Yes, and we are adding some catch basins actually as part of that.
Okay, because the feedback from 5 years ago when Park Road to Arnold Road, I think, was repaved, just that small section, it wasn't done sufficiently well that the edges were falling off. So just feedback, that's all. Thank you.
It is fully engineered.
Thank you, sir.
Rihanna, Illinois, Precinct 7. If it's not going to be done until the fall or the summer or the fall, is there can at least be potholes fixed in the meantime?
Sure, so we always have a pothole repair crew out, so we can continue to repair potholes. Some sections are unfortunately unraveling, so we'll monitor those. I mean, we are just getting that contract on board soon, and then we have to see the contractor's schedule. My guess is it would happen sometime this summer, but again, until I see that schedule, I can't make a commitment. But yes, I guess if there's potholes, we can make repairs, but the condition isn't going to significantly improve until this is restored. We can make things safe, though, through pothole repairs.
Do you know when it's at least going to bid?
It's actually out to bid right now. I want to say the bid is coming. I don't know the date. It's out to bid right now. We're about to make an award, probably in I think it's the next week.
Perfect, because when I called a couple weeks ago, it was not out to bid, so thank you.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 7. Just a question on the fire station on Route 27. Is that easement meaning the road will be torn up, or is it on?
So services will be brought to the mains in the roadway, so there will be sections of the roadway that have to be cut and restored, but the easement is easement is really within the property limits themselves. If you go back to.
Okay, thank you.
One more question, Badri Upadhyappan, Precinct 11. has National Grid, utilities and gas, or other telecom lines been contacted and cleared that that road is good? Or have residents been contacted to make sure that they're not planning a redevelopment within the next couple of years so that, people, we just pave it and then somebody goes and cuts across the whole thing all over again in 2 years? A very common problem in modern society. So I just wanted to make sure.
Sure, so we do reach out, so we plan our paving list. We actually have like a tentative 3-year plan, and we meet with the utility companies each fall, so that has already happened this past fall, and then we connect with them again beginning in the winter. So yes, they've been made aware, really, and honestly, this has been on our list for Horizon for the past couple of years, so they have been made aware of this. Whether it's up to them if they feel like they need to do an upgrade or replacement, but yes, they have been made aware of these projects, the utility companies. Residents, we don't do any specific notification to residents other than publishing our pavement list. When we go to do actual paving, that's when the notices are sent out to residents.
Okay, again, a suggestion, maybe contact them and let them know this is coming up, and if they have something, you notify that so that it can be scheduled if they were doing any upgrades. Thanks.
Courtney Cooper, Precinct 11. I just had a question with respect to Proctor Road. This is coming from one of the residents of the road. Again, about the lines in the middle of the road. They wanted clarity. Right now, it's a double yellow, solid in the middle. I've lived on Proctor Road for probably 40 years. And I guess historically, like many, many years ago, it used to be just a single yellow line. So I guess I wanted to clarify like what the difference between the single yellow line in the middle and the double yellow. I tried to look it up on the internet, but I wasn't having much luck.
I mean, usually double yellow is in both directions. You can't cross paths. Single yellow, I guess I'd have to look into, I have to confirm, honestly.
Okay, because so the resident.
There's none. I just don't know. It might also be, I guess, I'd have to look at the MUTCD manual to see if there's understanding in terms of volume of traffic and what triggers a single line. If it's a solid line, that's where you can't pass.
Yeah.
We often have double yellow lines. I guess I can't think of too many cases where we have a single yellow line.
Christine, I didn't hear what was being said over there. Can you clarify that one more time for me, please?
In terms of when you can cross a line, it's if it is solid, whether it be 2 lines, 3 lines, because you also hear about 3. Sometimes people paint different colors. So I think it's the continuity of the line. I'd have to check to see what triggers a single line versus a double yellow. We typically do the double yellow.
Okay, so that was like where the question, what triggered it originally from being a single to being a double. The reason the concern came about is because if you've traveled on Proctor Road or you live on it, the road has a lot of twists and turns and the cars fly down that road, and a lot of residents have felt like since the double yellow line has been there over the past, 10, 15 years, it seems like, and maybe this is just our interpretation, that drivers feel like, oh, wow, it's a double yellow line. We can go so much faster. So they'll be going, 40, 45 miles an hour on that road. And I drive down and I'm like, oh, I don't even want to go 30. It's that, well, the potholes make it go worse. But once it gets paved, it will be, like some people said, quite a quick road and dangerous. So that's why I just wanted to double check single versus the solid double.
Yeah, we'll look into it further.
Okay, thank you.
That was the same question that the resident that spoke to me about. The concern is to keep it or return it to a single line because there's a lot of walkers, dog walkers, pedestrians and whatnot, and the interest in the community is to have it be a single. So
we'll look into it.
Paul Cohen, Town Manager. Based on my experience and knowledge on 36 years, there is no such thing as a single solid yellow line in the Uniform Manual of Traffic Control Devices, which is the federal standard. I think what communities have done is they've gone to a single solid yellow line, usually because of the narrow road width, and to convey the same message. But technically, if you're going to go by the federal standards, which all states go by, there's no applicability or provision for a single yellow solid line. So I think what may be happening over time is different directors and different communities, are sort of handling it in a different manner.
And just to add to that, so we do reference the MUTCD standards, and I guess the standards that we've been implementing in the past few years have been double yellow or have been through those standards. And that might clarify what was done in the past. I guess we can't explain exactly single line but.
Whoops. No, I'm on. Is there anybody else who wishes to ask a question or engage in debate? Is this a question?
I'm sorry, just one more question, completely separate topic. Courtney Cooper, Precinct 11. I just wanted, a previous person had asked about the national grid and whatnot, the utilities. But have we also looked into, I don't know if this is the case or not, but properties which may have been paying their betterment fee for the sewer, but I don't know if they've brought the sewer tie-in onto their property, so to alleviate having to cut into the new roadway.
We have not looked at that. I mean, right now there is a sewer capacity constraint, so we're not allowing new tie-ins, I guess, but if they have paid for a betterment, we would honor it.
Right.
We don't go through and reach out to those people because sometimes those services can be there for years and years. If there's a development that comes forward, we do make them aware of that. But I guess to our knowledge, a development hasn't come forward on Proctor Road.
Okay, thank you.
All right, seeing no further questions or anyone who wishes to engage in debate, I will start the vote. Oh, this has to be a 2/3 vote to pass. Why is this? There we go. The consent agenda passes 119 for, 1 no, 0 abstentions. That's 119 to 1 to 0. Okay, that's the consent agenda. Now we're going to go back to where we left off at the end of night 2, and that would be Article 9, Mr. Cohen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 9 and essentially almost all of the upcoming financial remaining articles pertain to public works. So once again, I'm going to turn the podium over to our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, for the next few articles.
Thank you. So Article 9 is a request for PFAS treatment plant upgrades at 54 Richardson Road. 54 Richardson Road is one of our DPW, it just jumped. Sorry, there it goes. It is one of our DPW sites. It was formerly our, I guess, main headquarters, but going back 10 years ago, now we're at 9 Alpha Road. We still use it as a storage yard, but going back to 2020, we did discover what people probably PFAS or PFOS, and this is something in our society we're finding, unfortunately, in the environment. It was found at DPW. And it was above reportable limits. These reportable limits, they are, the state and the federal government in recent years has changed those thresholds. Going back several years ago, it was the reportable threshold was 70 parts per trillion, and then it's gone down to 20, and now there's also potential regulations bringing that down to 6 parts per trillion. And we're like saying parts per trillion, not parts per billion, parts per trillion. So we've had this system in place Once we exceeded that, became a reportable event through DEP, and we had to provide some PFAS mitigation to remove the PFAS from the soil and from the groundwater. So what we did, going back to 2022, we installed a pump and treat system, and that has been successful. You can see in this picture, there's a recovery well, and in one of those storage facilities, we have a 6-chamber unit with resin and charcoal, and it basically extracts water from the ground, puts it through the system, and then it spits it back out into the ground, and that has been successful. We do have to swap out the resin and the charcoal, the filters, essentially. So to date, we've done 157 million gallons of water through March of 2026 treating, and so we are also required with DEP to do quarterly testing. So in this picture, we have numerous wells to really see how effective the mitigation system is. That is quarterly, and then also we do an annual report. And let's see if there's anything. Also, just want to highlight that the source is probably from years of just being on site as a DPW, but there are also just regional background, other potential triggers as to what causes it. It is something in our environment that I think everyone is exposed to, but it is a reportable site, and so we are, I guess, just to go into this site, this is the wells that we've been testing in the recent couple of years, and we have to report each of these wells, and our goal is to bring the numbers down to right now below 20, and then eventually, if that number changes to below 6 parts per trillion. In many of these sites, we have been getting significant reductions because the pump and treat system has been successful. We have seen, though, an exceedance, and so about 40 parts per trillion at monitoring well 104, which is in the dog park area. And we've been monitoring this over the past probably 6 months, a year, hoping that number would go down, and it's not going down. Because that number is not going down, what we need to do is we need to extend the limits of our treatment system to be able to capture more in that dog park area. So this proposal is to expand the system. I know the other night we voted to maintain the system, and that's in our operations budget. So that is something continually happens. But this is an expansion of our system to expand the zone of capture to the dog park, carrying it right where you see from recovery well. We would be installing pipe up to the dog park, installing a recovery well over in that dog park over near that monitoring well 104. And then with that trenching, that would be pulling water from the dog park area over to our 6-chamber system in one of the bays that we have. And pictured here is our six chamber system. We do have to do sampling to install the well, and also following the well. We do have an estimate, and so that estimate is $242,000 to conduct this installation. Just a couple other notes on that. It is also upgrades to so as part of that system, we'll be using a frac tank just to manage the water during that process. We'll be sampling the well, and then also there'll be some minor upgrades and control upgrades to the 6-chamber system, pump and treat system itself. So, thank you.
Thank you, Director. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 9.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 9 by a vote of 5-0.
Is this one that the Planning Board would have a recommendation on? No? Rookie. Anyway, I will now entertain questions or debate.
Question, Lauren Roberts.
Name and precinct, if you please.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8.
Thank you.
Can you tell me who's doing the work, please?
So we have a consultant, Weston & Sampson, that has been our consultant for this PFAS mitigation operations. And then as far as the action, so we'll be working with them as the consultant. And then as far as the trenching, we'll probably be using some in-house staff, our DPW, to do that work.
Second question, how long has this been going on for? Because I come from this line of work, and I know that a lot of these environmental investigations, continue to evolve and expand, and you have to continue your investigation, and, the plume's bigger, and then you're treating it as you go. This feels like it wasn't delineated from the beginning, and so now we're going back out and spending money a second time around. Do we feel comfortable that when we go out right now that we're kind of done, or is there future plans to go out, just for an efficiency standpoint?
So as far as delineation, we've always, I guess, had this delineation pretty well determined. It just, the mitigation hasn't been as effective drawing from that area. So we were hopeful that with the migration of water as you pump, we'd be able to bring that number down from what it was down to below 20. We just can't get it below 40. So the limits haven't really changed. It's just, I guess, the effectiveness of our pump and treat system. So I think with all the sampling we've done, we feel confident that we have a good delineation on the plume.
And then last question, I don't recall what the budget was in the original, but how do we forecast the spend on this? Because PFAS is really expensive to clean up and very difficult.
Sure. So, this is an upgrade, so this is more of a capital. This is a separate cost. But aside from that, we're spending anywhere from $150,000 to $250,000 a year managing the system. The larger the plume, or the larger the capture area that we're looking at, the more sampling, there's more sampling of wells. The cost of samples and the testings has gone up significantly. So I guess we're about that 150 to 250 range right now in terms of just managing it. Hopefully, though, as the system works we'll be able to sample less wells, and hopefully that number will come down. We also are looking, it's required that the system be inspected weekly. We're looking to see if we can maybe bring that in-house, so that would save us maybe $70,000 a year. If I can move that, I just have to make sure I have someone licensed to do that. And so it's something that isn't going to be done immediately, but something that maybe could be done in the next year or two.
Thank you.
Lindsay Sieber, Precinct 11. I have some questions. If the regulatory limit remains at the 20 ppt, how long were you expecting this treatment to last until it's completed? How many years?
So it's hard to put a time frame on it. So I guess the numbers drastically decrease, which is great, but it's hard I guess we've asked that question to our consultants, and they say it could be a few years, it could be 10 years. You don't really know. It's hard to estimate, I guess, because of the system. It's also, this system itself was somewhat new, a new system that we put in. It hasn't been really used. PFAS is somewhat new that we're in terms of mitigating. So we've never really put a timeline. We were hopeful that we're looking at 5 to 10 years. It's something I've always hoped. But historically in other communities, I've seen treatment systems, not just for PFAS, for other treatments, and they're on for 20, 30, 40. So I guess you never want to put a number on it, but you're hopeful that it's effective and it's going to be as quick as possible. If that number changes to 6, it's obviously going to bring that timeline out to a longer duration. But we've seen significant decrease, so I would hope that we would be closer than, I hope. I guess I don't want to put a number on it because I don't want someone to say you said 5 years or 3 years, but we're hopeful that it's soon, within the next 5, 10 years. This is a hope, not an actual timeline.
Okay. And for my curiosity, what do you do with the spent resin or filters once they're used up? How do you dispose of a PFAS filter that's a forever chemical?
That is hazardous waste, and that is disposed of through a facility that accepts hazardous waste.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Amaro, Precinct 5, through the moderator to the speaker. Question, now these aren't drinking water wells, are they?
These are monitoring wells.
Okay.
No.
So in what way, even if there are some PFAS at a level of 40 or 20, how is it dangerous to Chelmsford residents? How does it pose a threat, a risk?
I mean, there's different districts, and there's different, I mean, PFAS is in our society. I say this specifically, though, I don't think poses a separate threat than maybe another area of town person. I mean, I guess it's a hard, so PFAS is prevalent, is in regionally or even nationally in drinking water. I guess I don't want to correlate this to our drinking water. It's in other districts as well.
I can see how in drinking water it's dangerous because you're imbibing it, but I mean, just if it's in the ground, how does it get into humans and cause health problems? And
I mean,
I guess I'm just theorizing. Who is mandating that towns like ours have to spend this money to clean up any level of PFAS anywhere?
Sir, hold for a second. Sir, did you ask a question and then did you have an adequate opportunity to answer the previous question?
I guess so who's mandating it is DEP is mandating it. As far, I don't want to say this location is not necessarily a cause for regional PFAS. PFAS is in our community. It's in other regions, other water districts. It's all over. Unfortunately, it's just, if you look at any type of product you purchase, it's there. And so it's just something to deal with. But we're mandated to clean this up, and that's what we're doing, and we're responsible. So DEP is making us clean it up.
Okay. Well, just an opinion. Maybe you have to go after the source. Maybe we need to stop having all the plastics in our environments. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Badru live in Precinct 11. Mr. Moderator, through you to the presenter. You note that this is historic DPW activities. Could you give a sense of what was the historic DPW activities that led to, what was the significant DPW activities and how many years, or approximately how many years, decades was it?
Sure. So, I mean, this was a site from 1955 up to 2015. Over the years, there might have been, even in today's society, there's still many elements with PFAS in it, but PFAS has been in chemicals or any other, really many things. So I can't pertain exactly what it was, but the recovery well, I guess what we call ground zero, the highest hit we got was coming right near the floor drain. So probably something to do with use of equipment, something, so it was in the floor, coming outside of the bays. So something potentially for use of equipment, I don't know if it was cleaning or I guess I don't know, I can't speak to what it exactly was, but it was something for DPW operations, and it probably was every day, something that could have been used, not every day, but it's just, it is in so many different products, chemicals, and it has been for years. And so any type of cleaning agent, any chemical.
Understood. So
Mr.
Mr.
Ulikpipan, would you adjust the microphone so it's a little closer to you?
I didn't.
Thank you, sir.
Pete's advice. Go ahead. The comment I wanted to, or finesse that I wanted to give was, do we not know the types of chemicals and equipment items that was concentrated for about 60 years, give or take, that on the site that was significant for the DPW operations? Do we know what kind of chemicals significantly were used that may have PFAS elements?
I mean, there's so many over the 50 years. There are various chemicals. We do have MSDS sheets for the chemicals that we currently use, but as far as, I guess we're not looking to. There's so many different chemicals over the years that had it that I can't specifically. But it was something that was might potentially coming through the floor drain, from the floor drains into a well area.
Understood. Next question logically from that is, what actions have we taken, or policies or control mechanisms are we taking now in terms of reducing PFAS infiltration at other locations and operational methods? For example, and just for example, and I may be completely wrong, and maybe the fire chief can tell this better, but I am under the assumption that certain fire protective equipment has treatments that may leach, and I'm not sure, okay, but if it is, are we taking steps in the new operational manuals to try and reduce this, to capture this effectively? So I want to get a sense so the community can understand where and how we're changing our policy based on this learning experience.
Yes, so DPW definitely, this site is still an active site, but only where we bring sometimes stockpiling material. There's no use of chemicals from DPW on this site. And then as far as our DPW at 9 Alpha Road, it really is a state-of-the-art facility where we do have wash bays, but all of that material is brought into a chamber, oil water separator, and separated and combined. So all those whatever is being used is contained, and there's really no hazard to the community. So having those systems in place really prevent any threat to the environment. Obviously, also if there's a way to hopefully, PFAS is still in a lot of different chemicals, but over time, I know there's also been, I think in general, a lot of equipment or agents or chemical cleanings have reduced those chemicals, the use of those chemicals, or inclusion of those chemicals. So if there is a greener option, we would something to look into. So we have the state-of-the-art facility at DPW, so there is not a threat to the environment.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that there is ongoing revisions of operating practices and policies very specifically. Did we discover PFAS in this location by chance or by accident or by a monitoring situation here maybe 5 years ago or something, just out of curiosity? Anybody remember that? Chelmsford Water? Not Chelmsford Water, find out. Thank you. Somebody did answer.
I did not hear the
Sorry, I wasn't here. I know it was discovered. I don't know the exact cause of what caused us to test, but we did.
Okay, it was found somehow, so that's fine.
Sir,
sorry.
You have reached your limit on questions. Do you wish me to start the clock?
Oh, sure. Why not? There's no debate, no questions here. I would support passing this dollar amount. But what I would like people to remember is our actions today or in the history has actions and burdens in the future. And I speak of it in off topic a little bit because of the sustainability aspect and theme. We have to think about our actions today that we burden our futures, whether it's for the born and unborn people of the Chelmsford of the future. So when we come with articles around questioning or asking for what is the value of something and asking for sustainability or thinking ahead for the longer term, we have to think about the consequences of what we introduce and use as a community. Whether it be PFAS, PFAS is very visible to us, it's in the drinking water, it's an immediate problem. Very similarly, there are other options of pollution. We just passed last Monday, we passed around light pollution. There may be other things around in the town when you do recycling or when you think about carbon pollution, so to speak, which we don't want to think about always, the use of fossil fuels. I'm using this as a soapbox at this point, but I just want us to think as a community that we are imposing burdens on the future when we don't do things today because it is very convenient for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, I will call for a vote. Ted? I am starting the clock. Trying to start the clock. All right, the clock has started. The article passes, 117 yes, 0 no, 1 abstention. If you recall, Article 10 was part of the first consent agenda, so Director, if you would move on to Article 11, please.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 11 is sewer pump station upgrades for the Clinton Ave, Fair Street, and Evergreen Street pump stations. And this is for appropriation of $1.5 million to upgrade these pump stations. So these pumps, we have 41 pump stations across town, a significant amount of pump stations compared to other communities. And we do have a 10-year plan, a plan to look at upgrading these pump stations. A lot of the pump stations that we have, I guess what to bring them up to how we want them to be is I call them almost like, look like you drive by on the street and you see a shed on the side of the road. Those sheds are pump stations and they house the equipment. By having those, it's easier to access the controls and the equipment. Also, it preserves the life, extends the life of the equipment inside those pump stations. Not all of our pump stations are brought up to that standard, and so that's part of our 10-year plan is to bring those stations up to that standard. So this is $1.5 million for the 3 stations for these upgrades. That is currently in design. We'll be going to bid very shortly. And then construction would be this summer or fall. These are pictured right here. It was taken in the winter. So right now they're active pump stations, but a lot of the units are below ground, and then they're held within fencing areas. The proposal is to construct new buildings at each of these stations, have new control panels, new generators, each of these pump stations, provide temp controls during that, because while we're putting these new buildings in place, we also have to maintain those existing pump stations. They have to operate. So having temporary controls during that process. So as installation within the buildings is new control panels, new generators. At Clinton, we're just reinstalling the generator. That's a fairly new generator. Also some new variable frequency VFD pumps and new ultrasonic flow meters. Here's an example of the Milan pump station as pictured. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 11.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 11 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. I will entertain questions or debate.
Badri Uplivan, Precinct 11. Mr. Moderator, through you to the presenter. This is 1.5 million over 15 years, and what will be this current expected life, service life?
Typically, I mean, there's equipment within this that's going to fail potentially every 10, sometimes pumps for only 5 years just because of the use of them, but the building itself should really last, we build for 50 years.
Okay, thanks on that. Key big item factors, key factors affect the service life of the pumps?
I had trouble hearing the question. Would you repeat it for me, please?
What key factors affect the service life of the pumps, which is the biggest component?
Yeah, I mean, use, I mean, basically they're continuously running, so there's so many hours that a pump runs, and so if depending, and there's a variable pumps, so they're turning on different levels, so if there's higher flows, so especially, during, which we have higher flows typically during rainier events, even though our system is separated, we do have infiltration and inflow, so it's really the use. Sometimes something gets caught in a pump, that goes through, so it's just, they take the most work, and so it happened. And that's why we have a robust team, a sewer division that goes and inspects these so that we don't have these failures, because that's a catastrophic failure. So we're continuously using preventative maintenance to make sure that these pumps are replaced or maintained, and that's a big part of the sewer division. And we have so many controls, monitoring. We have alarms that go to our phones if there's any type of failure.
Thank you on that. Would you say that if residents are smart about water usage and sewer usage, so to speak, and reduce the volume overall, it would potentially increase the life cycle of these equipment?
I mean, theoretically, yes, yeah. Sewer use, lower
Theoretically.
sewer usage, yes, it would.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I feel that was a rhetorical question.
Not really, because the reason to ask that is to actually make sure people understood that when doing some actions of theirs, and every question of mine is based on sustainability, is about which Chelmsford water is stressed, which people may not understand. So it is to connect the dot that if people were to reduce that usage, they have a reduction in bill as the cost increases. Number two, it means we have lower capital expenses or other operating expenses.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. Can you tell me how many sump pump stations we have in town?
We have 41 pump stations and 2 flow meters, so 43 stations that we monitor.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
We have 41 pump stations
Okay.
and 2 flow meter stations. So we meter at 43 locations, but we actually have only 41 pump stations. Some of them pump 2 pump stations, so it's not like they're all going to Lowell. There's only 5 that go to Lowell.
And what is the general life expectancy? I know it varies, you know, for the type of pump, how big it is, how small it is.
I believe that was that asked and answered, but if
Life expectancy of what?
the pump.
Oh, the pumps? I mean, they could be 5 to 15 years, 10 years.
And that was asked earlier, but
I mean, sometimes make it 20 years. They're continuously maintained, and as they're seen to need replacement, we replace. But we've replaced some after a few years, and we've replaced some that are 10, 15 years. I don't think it will last more than 20 years.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8, you mentioned that there's 41, 43 of these pump stations, so we're being asked to vote on spending 1.5 to upgrade 3 of them. Do you have line of sight for all the other ones, just to give a general idea of what we're expecting?
Yep, so of our 41 pump stations, we have, after this, we have 5 more major pump station upgrades, and these are, I guess, more minor, I would say. And then we have three other pump stations. So we have 8 total remaining of the 41 after this.
Okay, and then the other question is, and if you already answered this, just let me know, but we're spending on a full building reconstruction for these. Can we use the existing buildings, or is that not viable?
Well, there's no building there. From the picture, it was just a fence, so there's no building. So all these other locations are really fenced-in locations.
And how does that differ from not having a building versus paying for a building?
So a lot of the controls and panels are below ground, so it's harder to access. It brings a lot of control panels. Everything is basically protected from the weather and inside a building, as opposed to being in a wet well, in a vault underground, or in some cases they're just above ground and behind fencing. So it just extends the life of the equipment, and it's easier for access control, maintenance, monitoring, preventive maintenance. It is a standard now for pump stations. It's just going back to when we originally were put in. It wasn't, I guess, this wasn't really the standard at the time. We had to get 41 pump stations in, so they put them in as effectively as they could.
Thank you.
Richard B. Freitas, Precinct 9. I have one quick question for the presenter. On Porter Road, the pumping station, I believe, was supposed to be scheduled for town meeting, and it was withdrawn. Do you know what the status is on that?
What's the name of the pump station?
It's on Raymond Road, I'm sorry.
Raymond is on our list, so I believe we're looking at it. It would probably be next year or the year after.
Thank you.
Courtney Cooper, Precinct 11. I just wanted to ask, the first picture there, is that the proposed building that you would like to do with the 3 stations that you're gonna do?
That's it under construction. I should have shown a picture. I don't have a picture here with me tonight, but once it's constructed, it looks like a shed, and then there's usually arborvitae's around it. It looks nice. It's also, that's important that we also make it blend into the community. This is just the construction site and it being constructed right here as we were working on the Mylan pump station, but it looks like a shed you see on the side of the road. And we also do try to, with fencing or with arborvitae's, and often if it's right up against a resident's house, we'll coordinate with them as well. So it's not, it doesn't look like that's in construction, but it is finished, and as you drive around now, you'll probably see them on the side of the road, and they kind of blend into the community.
Okay, I just wanted to double check, because we have one on Tuttle Road, and looks fairly innocuous, little
Yes.
mini house. And I just was thinking, if I lived on these 3 streets and that was there, I would be a little more upset than what's on Tuttle
Yeah,
Road.
this is
so.
in construction, so it's
Okay.
not complete.
Thank you.
Hi, Joshua Walsh, 50 Clinton Avenue. I'm a direct abutter to the Clinton Ave property, obviously. The previous speaker actually asked all my questions, but I have one more. Would you be repaving all of the driveways leading up to these pump stations as well?
The driveways?
Yes.
So if there's construction that directly if it's related to our construction, then yes. But if it's not related to our construction, no. We also look at these streets and how that pairs with our paving plan. So we try to do this work ahead of a paving plan. And I don't know if that, I have to honestly check. I did not check tonight if Clinton, Fair, or Evergreen's in that list. But we do look at paving plan with these projects. If we had to do any work on your property, then yes. But other than that, we do not do paving.
No, I understand. Clinton Ave was just paved a few years ago, or 1 or 2 years ago. I mean the actual driveway for the pump station itself leading up to
yes,
it.
we typically, it is, I mean, if the pavement itself is intact and in good condition, we might just do a repair, but typically with all the digging, we would do a full, in the end, it will look like a newly constructed site.
Perfect. Ms. Marr, can you start the clock, please? As a direct abutter, I've been staring at the green fenced-in area for, 10 years now. There's trees surrounding it. They're not the best condition. I'd love to see one of the new sheds being put in as they've been around town, so I fully support this. It'll help, the look, the feel, the smells sometimes are not great. And also, improving the conditions of the equipment itself so you're not there constantly doing repairs. So I fully ask town meeting to support this bill, and thank you.
Thank you. This will need a 2/3 vote. Is there any more discussion? Ted? This clock has started. Wait, I did. Sorry. It votes, the vote is in. It's 119 yes, 1 no. And the article passes. So we are moving on to Article 13 because Article 12 was part of the first consent agenda. Director Clancy.
Thank you. Stormwater rack body truck is article number 13, so request to purchase in the amount of $115,000 paid over 5 years. Purchase this truck for the DPW Stormwater Division. So here is pictured a similar vehicle that we'll be looking to purchase, equivalent of an F-550. I guess it says rack body truck, but really it will be equipped as a tool truck. This would be used as a mason truck to repair a lot of our drainage structures. as you might be aware, the Stormwater Division is one of our newest divisions, so it's still growing. So sometimes we still are coming forward with these new requests or new trucks. With the team that we have, we're seeing that we can do some repair. We are doing repairs in-house, and sometimes we're borrowing the highways equipment. And so I think it would just, because also highway is very busy, and so if we were able to have a truck dedicated to stormwater to help with some of these drainage repairs, and the more repairs we can do in-house, the less we're spending money to hire a contractor to do those repairs. And so we are trying to do as much as we can in-house. Also, this vehicle will assist with snow removal operations, and so that is something too, is as we add vehicles, I'm trying to make sure they're equipped with plows, because every division helps with snow plow removal. As mentioned, I think on Monday night, is we are seeing a decrease in contractors, and so we're, the more I can try to bring that in-house. Obviously, we'll always want contractors to support us and help us, but the more trucks I can add, hopefully the more routes I can cover in-house as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 13.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 13 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. I will entertain questions, discussion.
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. One quick question. How old is the present truck?
Well, so this is really a new truck for stormwater. This is just pictured what we want, but this isn't a replacement. This is a new truck for stormwater.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ted? Oh, apologies.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8. So the last night we were here, we had been requested to approve budget for a lot of trucks, and I think I said before it was over $1 million worth of trucks for the town. Can you just re-explain again why we cannot share the trucks? And it just causes me to question, like, are all the trucks always out at the same time where we can't use another vehicle versus these continued purchases that add up to a lot of money?
Sure. So, yes, what was voted on the other night was capital. This is a separate request because this is under our Stormwater Enterprise Fund. So any requests, capital requests per se, don't go into the capital fund. They go through the Stormwater Enterprise. The Stormwater Enterprise Fund, like the sewer fund, operates, I guess, independently. So anything that they use is funded through that fund, and that's why I guess it's a request separated from the Monday nights. But yeah, so I mean, they have been using the highway vehicle sometimes, but that thing is that we're so busy in highway as well that there are times where they're having to coordinate, and they say, well, you have the vehicle tomorrow. Like, it's just an extra coordination, and we see the need to have that vehicle so we can have two crews out without trying to share a vehicle. So there are often, I'm not saying it's every day, but there's a lot of instances throughout the spring, summer, and fall where we have so much work going on that we're actually short on equipment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else? All right. Now, Ted, I'm going to start the clock, and this also has to 2/3? This also requires a 2/3 majority. The tally is in. The article passes 113 yes, 5 no, 2 abstentions. That clears the 2/3. The article has passed. Director Clancy, would you go to Article 14?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 14 is the Rainbow Ave drainage improvements. This is a request to appropriate $350,000 for the design and construction of drainage improvements along Rainbow Avenue. And again, this is a separate request from our capital because this is through our Stormwater Enterprise Fund. Oops, I went too fast. So Rainbow Ave, as pictured here, this is going back to, I think it was 2 summers ago. We had a pretty significant rainfall season, and so we had some high intensity rainfall events. And in those events, we had flooding throughout the, unfortunately, through the community. And Rainbow Ave was one that was flooding quite a bit that summer. This is a picture from that time. We have looked into this since then, and we've done some investigations. We've done some minor improvements at the outfall end, but in looking at that, evaluating that system, the system is undersized. It's 10 to 12 inch. It needs to be upsized to at least 15 inch. Also, the manhole, what's pictured here is you see going out to the outfall, you have 4 catch basins, and those catch basins are interconnected. The true way when you design a storm drain system is you want to have catch basins connect to a manhole, so you have that capacity in each of the catch basins. The way that they're interconnected, you don't have that added capacity at least a few of those catch basins because they're connected to each other before connecting to a manhole. So we do want to add manholes and then have the catch basins located in the appropriate locations along the roadway, upgraded and connecting to those manholes and not connected to each other. And this is all in compliance with the MS4 permit. This is a pretty sizable project that we probably would hire a consultant to do it. It's about, I think, over 250 linear feet. It is estimated $350,000, and that would be borrowed over 10 years. This could be completed this summer or fall, and essentially any design would be done in-house and ready to go out to bid to be able to do this work, like I said, this summer or fall. Thank you.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 14.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 14 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. I will entertain questions, discussion.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 7. Where is this water going to go? Is this going back into the soil, or is it going out to sewage?
No, this is all stormwater. Our stormwater system is separate from our sewer system. So this all outlets to a brook as shown here, just behind Rainbow Ave, which goes to, I have to actually check to see where that goes to, but we have throughout the community, a lot of wetland areas that then tributary to whether it be Merrimack River, Concord River, different brooks. And so it is going, we're not replacing we're not creating a new outfall. This is just reestablishing the outfall, but just with the appropriate pipe size and upgrades.
Is there a way to return this water to our groundwater, because our groundwater level is dropping? Yeah.
Well, by returning it to the brook, I guess it would seep to the, but yeah, when we discharge stormwater, we're not discharging into the ground, the typical, I mean, dry wells do that, but typically, and also, I guess our standards for a storm drain system is you're outletting to a body of water. That's really typical. And then because we also inspect those outfalls to make sure there's no blockage, and so we're constantly going throughout the year and checking these outfalls to make sure they're not, I guess I'm not sure, you're saying put into I'm not sure exactly what mechanism, but eventually, yes, it does go to our groundwater. It's just through an outfall that goes to the brook. We don't pump it into the ground.
If it goes to the Merrimack River, it does not end up in groundwater. It ends up in the ocean.
It all is interconnected, I guess, if you're putting it. I'm not saying this goes to the Merrimack, this goes to a brook that goes to a wetland.
Just for sustainability, start the clock, please. Just a comment that for sustainability, trying to get water that we've got standing and getting it somehow back into our groundwater will help the town in the long run, as opposed to into a stream that will eventually run out to the sea. So that's That's all my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Janice Shoffis, Precinct 3. My question is regarding when the next planned, I'll say road upgrade or maintenance is for Rainbow, because the roads right in that community have been being repaved over the last couple of years. So when this project is done, will Rainbow also have a full repaving? Because it's in pretty rough shape right now.
I have the plan over there. Actually, I can just quickly check. Let me just grab my pavement plan. I just want to see if it is on the list for this year before Rainbow Ave is not on this year, but I do think, so we do also, when we look at drainage, we look to see if we can put it on the paving plan, and I wanted to check because I know we were talking about it. It's not on this current year's paving plan, but I would say it would probably be, I can't guarantee next year, but yes. So that's also sometimes why projects get pushed, because paving projects get pushed because we want to do the drainage improvements before we do the paving. So yes, so with us digging on the road, we will look to see how that does tie into the paving plan.
Okay, thank you. You can start the clock. So I myself do live on Rainbow Ave, and I can attest to the water depths right at this intersection, having been about mid-calf during that summer. So I would highly recommend that this committee move forward, the town meeting rather, and pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? This will require a 2/3 majority to pass. Ted? Starting the clock. The article passes, 118 yes, 2 no, 0 abstentions. If you remember the consent agenda from the other night, it took up a lot of the articles between here and there, and we're going to move now to Article 24. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm going to give our Public Works Director a brief breather, but she'll be back up shortly. I'm presenting this article on behalf of the Community Preservation Committee. This is really a ministerial article, and basically what happened is at the April 2024 Spring Annual Town Meeting 2 years ago, the body appropriated $8,000 for the preservation of headstones at Forefather Cemetery, as you can see printed on the screen. What ended up happening is the town received a grant from an estate that prescribed that money be spent for headstone preservation at the Forefather Cemetery. So that's what the Cemetery Commission has done. So basically that supplanted the need for this money. However, there is work at other cemeteries that the commission and the director are seeking to do. So because that first article was limited to that cemetery, they came back to the Community Preservation Committee and basically asked them, got their approval, and are now coming to you saying, can we use these balance of this $8,000 to address cemetery headstone restoration at the town's other cemeteries? That's the presentation on this article, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 24.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 24 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. I will entertain questions or debate.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8. Is this money that was donated by somebody specifically to be used at the Forefathers Cemetery only?
This money under this article is community preservation monies that were voted by the community and are restricted to the purposes allowed under the Community Preservation Act. But because that motion allows for historic restoration, which is what happens at the cemetery, that article specified the Forefathers Cemetery because that's where the initial focus was, because that's our oldest cemetery. So basically they have funds, outside funds from an estate that was donated to the town to address that. They now want to go and use this $8,000 at the other cemeteries in town.
The
for
estate
restoration.
wants to use
No,
that?
the town does. The town does. The estate had limited the funding to Forefathers Cemetery.
Was all the work completed?
Yes, basically they have sufficient funding, to complete that work. And that estate also donated money to the library for library purposes as well. Yes.
Could we pause for a second?
Yes.
Could you adjust the mic? We're having a bit of trouble hearing your questions. Thank you so much.
Is it best right at the okay, got it. Okay, I guess if it's going towards that and it was donated for that, if it were my money, I would want to see it stay where it was provided.
And that's exactly what we did. What we're saying is this isn't the estate money. This is the town's funds allowed under the Community Preservation Act that have restricted uses under that state law that limits it to historic preservation purposes, community housing, or open space and recreation purposes. So what we're saying is we're going to honor the estate that donated the gift to the town. What we're doing is coming back to the town meeting, which is the town's money, which is the $8,000 we're talking about here, and allowing us to use it for a wider purpose.
Okay.
So therefore, we're trying to honor everybody's intentions.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not seeing anybody else. This will require a majority to pass. And I'm starting the clock. The article passes 117 to 0. Yes, it is unanimous. So, Mr. Manager, if we could move to Article 25.
Okay, Article 25 is the final financial warrant article on the spring annual town meeting warrant. This is, as the title suggests, is to provide handicapped accessible playground equipment at Varney Playground. I'm going to turn the podium over to our Public Works Director, Christine Clancy, because she's the person who basically has been able to bring this project forward, including some grant funding that's going to support this project.
Thank you. So Article 25 is the installation of Varney Playground equipment in the amount of $74,000 from the Community Preservation Fund Grant General Reserve. As pictured here, this is Varney Playground. This was installed a few years ago, and this is a full ADA compliant playground. We have the green material you see is the poured in place material. So it really is one of our more improved playgrounds. We've always thought that we could potentially add a second phase of this playground. And recently, about a year ago, the Rare Road Foundation approached me and said they wanted to donate some money towards a project to be able to, I guess have some component, handicap accessibility component added to our playgrounds. And I just thought that was a great timing because we were looking at, well, maybe we should start that next phase of Varney Park. So we connected, and really that's really how this project started. So what's pictured here in this mulched area is really that second phase that we could always add. Really, it would probably be good for one more piece of equipment to add to kind of make that whole playground whole. And so what we did is we did consult with the Railroad Foundation and one of our vendors and just said, give us some options of some pieces of equipment that would be accessible for, fully ADA accessible. Also, what was important for the Railroad Foundation, they thought something that if kids are in wheelchairs and want to use the equipment themselves, because we've received calls from DPW, is that it's great that our playgrounds are ADA accessible, but you have to take the child out of their wheelchair to be able to put them in a piece of equipment. They wanted something where kids can really go right onto the equipment and use the equipment. And this was a rendering that was provided by a vendor. And I'll show on the next slide, they showed a piece of equipment that will fit very nicely and will extend that green area we call the poured in place, just so you can really go right up to that piece of equipment. And this is a piece of equipment proposed. It's called the We Go Round, and it's really a great piece of equipment. It's great for all ages, and it's fully accessible by anyone that wants to use it. There's benches in there, there's space for a wheelchair in there, with strollers, and then it spins. And I guess having been to playgrounds a lot with my kids, anything that spins is extra exciting. And so this is all playground equipment can be pricey, so we have a proposed budget to show you is the structure itself costs $48,000. Also that surface, it's really important to have that surface so we can bring that right to the equipment. Also in terms of a maintenance, because we thought about putting some mulch in parts of it, but we don't want mulch to get into that into that structure. So really provides a clean ADA compliant surface and easily maintained surface. And so in total, the project is $84,000, but we were partnering with the Railroad Foundation, their donation, which they were just doing the fundraising this past March, and I think they're actually looking upon tonight's approval to pass along that donation. So it really makes this a great project for the community. And the total request is $74,000. This project, so with, I guess after tonight, we would at least look to securing the equipment for installation probably later this summer, early fall. I know the Varney Playground area is very busy in the summer, so probably as the summer is winding down, we would look to install this project, and so it will be installed. My estimate is early fall. So thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Director Clancy. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 25.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 25 by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. I'll entertain questions or discussion.
Virginia Crocker Timmons, Precinct 3. You can start the clock. I also serve as chair of the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee, and this area is under the scope of that implementation plan. The committee statuses and discusses changes in this area regularly. We've had a discussion and a presentation by the previous speaker, and the committee unanimously voted to recommend support of this article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alvin Draymond, Precinct 7. It's nice when a person gets in their wheelchair, but what makes it go round?
Moved around. I mean, it also, I mean, I haven't seen one myself, but I mean, you can move a little bit with shifting of weight, but someone is moving it around, so people will be pushing it.
Okay, so it does not have a motor power or something like that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that microphone glitch. Is there anybody else? Anything else? Seeing none, Ted? Thank you. I'm going to start the clock. This needs a majority to pass. The article passes 119 for, 1 against. Okay, that's 25. We are moving to Article 26, which I believe, Mr. Latina, please.
Good evening. I'm Brian Latina, 15 Jesse Road. I'm a town meeting rep, Precinct 9. My family and I have been living here for almost 30, a little more than 30 years. Article 26 is to see if the town will switch us back to the definition of family in our town that we had. And we actually had a town meeting warrant article last year this time at spring town meeting, and we voted the new definition down. So it came back in the fall, and we voted to change our definition of family that had been here since the charter. In fact, we updated it, and the Attorney General approved it in 2012, 14 years ago, and we've been running just fine with that definition of family. That is, I would give you the presentation here, but I was told that I cannot because the moderator hadn't seen it in advance, so I apologize for that. My first slide would have shown you that the definition of family as we had it was any number of individuals related by blood, marriage, adoption, foster, legal guardianship, living together in one dwelling unit as a single housekeeping unit, but not including more than 4 persons living together unrelated by blood or marriage. And again, that's been around since our charter and last updated 14 years ago. The warrant article in fall of 2025 came up and it said that we're going to change that definition of your families. If you think about it, we have 9,061 single family homes. So we changed that definition of those 9,061 homes to be 1 or more persons occupying a dwelling unit who share access to common living, cooking, and eating areas, living together as a single housekeeping unit with permanence and cohesiveness. That's the anyone definition of family. So anyone living in, I'll call it an outbuilding or an ADU, the accessory dwelling unit that we've now allowed in our state, so that every one of those 9,061 unit single family homes in our residential areas are now duplexes, essentially. Every neighbor, every fence you look over, could put a 750 square foot, larger than a shed, in your backyard and sell the property to someone that's not in your family. And it's by right. You don't even have to go to the planning board for that. So this anyone definition was supported by town meeting with a 2/3 vote to change our definition of family. And that didn't work very well for me and my family and several others as well. Talking to them, they asked me to please step in and change our definition back. At that town meeting, there was a discussion about the Attorney General came and made a suggestion to us. The planning board, I suppose, sometime between spring of last year and October. Wasn't clear what it was or who said what to whom, but we came up with a presentation. I think there were 13 slides that you would have seen up here. But they didn't mention the Fitchburg case that had happened in March of 2025, last year. Bark Realty versus City of Fitchburg actually protected their single-family housing units with their law that's very similar to what we used to have. And the definition of family was supported by the Supreme Judicial Court. That's our Supreme Court in the state here. And keeping in mind that zoning is something that each town, 351 towns and cities, each town's responsible for the definition of family, not the state. Not even the federal government to some degree. We do have a Fair Housing Act that was mentioned last October. And the Massachusetts Attorney General office recommends, that was a statement that was put on one of the slides, that during zoning review, the Attorney General's review, interesting, that's not really her charge, to suggest that we might want to avoid potential conflicts in future lawsuits. Our definition has been around for a long time. We haven't had any lawsuits related to it. In theory, you could point at your neighbor and say, oh, they're not a family. Sorry, that's ridiculous. It's never happened, it never will. The Attorney General does not establish conflict, direct or indirect. The Fair Housing Act protects us from that. That's a federal law that prohibits discriminatory housing practices, and it's been in place since 1968. That's 58 years. They did some updates to it. They added, one of our lawyers suggested that, a couple of new type of families, lesbian couple living in Chelmsford might have to sue us because we wouldn't let them live in our neighborhood. Well, they live here now. The Fair Housing Act protects that. There is no sexual discrimination. I have a group home on my street. That's a family group home. We consider that just fine. You're protected by the Fair Housing Act for discrimination against disabled persons as well. I have a disabled son, as many of you know. He's family. I know what that is. I know what that definition is. If someone came into the house to help take care of him and live there, that's not necessarily my family. But under our new definition, any one person living in the shed out back with a sink and a faucet in there and built as an ADU could now use that. It's kind of scary to me how that works. The justification did not include the 2024 Congressional Research Report, which also supports family in the traditional definition. In 1968, the FHA, Fair Housing Act, protected us from race, color, religion, national origin. An amendment also added prohibition against sexual discrimination. In 1988, prohibitions against the familial status and physical and mental disability were also added to that. So we're protected at a federal level. U.S. Supreme Court also affirmed that you can use a cap. In other words, if a group of people move into the house next door, or in my case down the street, a bunch of guys moved in, it's kind of like a frat house in a single-family neighborhood. Nobody complained. It wasn't enforced. It doesn't really hurt anybody. But we do have laws, and you can set a cap. Supreme Court of the United States affirmed that the cap on that is okay for us at a local level to set. That's what we do. That's how the government works in our country. Now, they referenced at the meeting in October the Commonwealth versus Jaffe. Interesting. They made a mistake. They did just the opposite. They made a statement that you can't use the single housekeeping. You had to use the single housekeeping unit. It's not the case. There's an item in that particular case that protected the Jaffe case was relating to laws in California, Michigan, and New York, and they're not consistent with any state law we have. So it was actually contrary to our state law that case went through, and that was in 1988, for goodness sakes. Updates to the definition of family and zoning bylaws and definitions for zoning bylaws and land use are not, they said they are not to redefine societal definition. Well, they certainly are. When you attack a family and you change the definition of family under some other law like this one, you do affect the law, and it does change how our society looks at it. There was a comment about updating the definition in family zoning by the bylaw definitions used for zoning bylaws are land use. Well, that's what we do. We live 9,000 single-family homes. We live in those homes. It is not just land use, it's family. And the laws are supposed to protect how our community sets. So the Fair Housing Act was in compliance. Towns adopted inclusive definitions to avoid liability under the Fair Housing Act. Was that consistent with the FHA? Well, no, it wasn't. Fair housing prohibitions are against discriminatory housing practices. The model language that the state attorney general, and I had to kind of look back at what we have. We have an executive branch and a judicial branch, and we also have a legislative branch. That's what you folks are. You're the legislators of our town. The state attorney general is supposed to follow the law, not make law. So when she comes and tells us, hey, you need to change your bylaws, she is not correct. She is outside of her range of things to do. And to be fair, 72% of our voters a year ago voted to take the legislature and have them audited, and she is fighting that personally. So she's outside of her lane in this particular case. Finally, the cap on occupancy is something that we're allowed to do, and I would like this body to consider their single-family homes and think about what's there and think about what the change would be if you just let anyone in, any single random groups of people to move in. I got to tell you, the boys down the street at the frat house, till that house was sold, it was a little noisy, a lot of partying going on. I don't want to see that in our town, just randomly around. That becomes a city really quick. Warrant Article 26 would, just voting yes, would allow us to go back to what we had last spring, and it is the basis for protections. Fitchburg was able to use theirs. There's
1 minute, sir.
We're the way we have ours, and it allows you to set caps on how many people can be in there that are not related, and then if you want to enforce it, which I suggest that we don't, it would allow for somebody to say, hey, we've got something other than a single family in our area. So the non-relationship based, anybody living here needs to be switched back so we can figure out what we want to do in our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Latina. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends against Article 26.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends not to approve Article 26 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
Mr. Moderator, as required, the Planning Board opened the required public hearing on the zoning amendment on January 28th with an invitation to the presenter to present his article to us. He responded that while we could not attend that meeting, we'd be happy to attend a future meeting to discuss the article. Since then, I emailed him 6 times, inviting him to the subsequent 5 Planning Board meetings before this town meeting. I received no reply, and he did not attend any of the meetings to present this article to us. Subsequently, the Planning Board voted on this article at our April 8th meeting. The board voted unanimously against recommending Article 26.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions, discussion, debate.
Mr. Moderator, you can start the clock.
Yes.
I would first like to correct some misinformation that the presenter provided. Contrary to Mr. Latina's account, the Attorney General does not dictate our zoning bylaws. The Attorney General's office merely provides suggestions and input to the Planning Board, just like anyone else is able to do. As you've likely noticed in recent town meetings and will continue to notice tonight and in the ones near future, the current Planning Board has become very proactive in looking at our town zoning bylaws to see where we may need to update them in order to keep them updated to reflect current uses, new uses, changes in our town, changes in laws at the state level. As you saw on Monday night and continue to see tonight, some of the changes we propose are adjustments to the current bylaws or maps, while others are new uses, definitions, or ideas. The Planning Board takes feedback, input, suggestions from anyone, town meeting reps, residents, even the Attorney General. Then we as a board discuss the details and decide whether to advance the changes or not. We often hold informal sessions on these items, and we always hold public hearings on all of the zoning-related bylaw and regulation changes to take additional public input at that time. We then present the proposed changes to the Select Board and FinCom for their recommendations, and then finally present them to this body where we vote on them as a group. As both a Planning Board member and a town meeting rep, I find this bylaw proposal deeply troubling and frankly insulting. This board, the town, staff, town meeting reps invested significant time researching and discussing this article last town meeting. To bring it back without any changes and essentially overturn without any influence or any attempt to see how it works is, to me, unsustainable. What's to stop us from any town meeting vote that comes up? If we don't like it, bring it up at the next town meeting to revote it and relitigate it again.
1 minute.
I firmly encourage you to vote against this bylaw.
Sir, I forgot to ask your name and precinct. Could you just...
Sorry, Chris LaValle, Precinct 10, Rep and Planning Board Chair.
Thank you.
Joel Luna, Precinct 10, also on the Planning Board. And we were very interested to hear what the argument would be for this, because we wanted to see what was the compelling reason for wanting to change it back.
Mr. Luna, could you speak up? We're having difficulty hearing you.
Yeah, let's see if that works any better. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
And so, still after hearing the presentation from the Select Board and then also from the presentation tonight, I don't hear any compelling reason to change this bylaw, this family definition. Most of the presentation has to do with a legal opinion of the presenter. The presenter, I don't think, is qualified necessarily to give us a legal opinion, and this town is relying upon town council for its legal opinion with regards to this, which is why it was submitted to you that way last time. I don't see how any of that changes. Also mentioned that if this does affect how society will look at it, I addressed that in the last time that we discussed this, and basically what I said then was, even if you felt that way, this is not the hill to die on for that. This is something that we need for our purposes for zoning. I think we're a little bit unusual among all the other boards, is that most of our tools come from your approval, have to come before you for your approval. And so this is one of those things that helps us reduce the risk. We're always weighing, the risks that we take and the decisions that we make, and this will help us reduce risk for a potential problem in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. If you could please start the clock, Mr. Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me.
We are a nation of laws. So before any law is changed or bylaw, we should know what the law is. And in knowing what the law is and what is changed, we then need to know what the impact is, whether it's consistent with what was established, whether it's a significant difference or a severe one. Unfortunately, regarding the definition of family, the AG did not provide any federal law, FHA consideration, or state law specifically. However, there is a document, 2024 Congressional Research Service, CRS, which did a report on the Fair Housing Act, a legal overview. And in that, they gave the history of the Fair Housing Act, its amendments, and some U.S. Supreme Court decisions. The Fair Housing Act is inclusive with all that information. It goes from race, color, religion, national origin, sexual discrimination, sexual orientation, gender identity, familial status, and physical and mental disability. So it's all inclusive. So within that, U.S. Supreme Court had said
1 minute.
that caps are allowed on unrelated persons in order to, and designed to preserve family neighborhoods. The SJC said that the legislature gave the cities and towns the authority to define family for their own zoning code purposes. So there is no separation between definition of family and the zoning code. And the purpose of that was to preserve the residential neighborhoods and the character of the residential communities, all told. So there's a lot of information lacking in the AG's suggestion, and truthfully, it's against the FHA state and federal laws. It is unlawful. So any liability in future lawsuits will be due to an improper definition of family that excludes family itself. Commonwealth v. Jaffe, the SJC accepted.
Time has expired, ma'am.
Okay, one sentence.
Please.
Accepted the definition of family as some relationship, blood or otherwise. So the SJC recognizes the
Ma'am.
definition of family is relationship-based.
Ma'am, time.
Thank you.
I will have order. I will have order. Thank you.
Thank you.
Glenn,
Are you asking a question, or do you wish me to start the clock?
don't start it quite yet.
Okay, sir.
Stand by. There is a, you can't hear me? I'm going to have to work on that. Brian, could you explain what the federally accepted definition of family is in the federal government, which supersedes most of the state governments? Do you have a definition for family?
The FHA has an inclusive definition of family in it. It's not as fine point as ours, where it talks about the number of people, Glenn. It talks more about the prohibition. You can't discriminate.
Oh, hold on a minute, Glenn. When we had the feedback, we stopped your microphone. Pete, can he go, or? Okay. It was a technical issue. Please continue.
As soon as I remember what I was going to say.
I apologize.
Okay. So there are two different categories of definition of the federal government. One, it's a question, stand by. One is family, and the second is household. And are you suggesting that this definition would replace both of those, or just one of them?
Well, that's the challenge. It seems to be more discriminatory than our standard that we've had for, like I said, 14 years since the last time the Attorney General said our definition was just fine.
Okay, you can start the clock now. I'll be relatively brief. It's very important when we put together something that's going to impact the entire town that the first thing we do is get the definition of the major words correct. And when you look at definitions of words like family and household, it's going to be in the terms that an average person sitting in the room would understand. If you talk about a family, generally people in this room would say a family is going to be people that are related to each other, adopted, married by birth, and so forth. That's been the definition that the federal government uses and has been used in cities and towns across the country for decades. There's another word called household, and a household are people living together. Could be partly family, could be other people like the people living down the street from Brian there, that they take care of the properties and they are a household. So I'm pretty sure I know the way the vote's going to go on this tonight, but we need to be a little bit more careful about the words we use when we put into our bylaws. If we mean household, we should say household. And that's people that live together in a way that maintains the property, they keep the peace, they buy the food, and so forth, but they're just living together as a household, and they pay the bills, hopefully, and the taxes. And if you want to say family, that is a completely different definition in the federal government and most places across the country. So I know how the vote's going to go tonight, but we should take another look at it to see if do we mean household in these bylaws or do we mean family, because they are different, and our lawyer can tell you the difference between them, but you can look it up too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deirdre Conley, 19 Billerica Road. I'd like to move the question.
I couldn't hear. Oh,
I'd like to move the question, Deirdre Conley, precinct.
thank you,
10.
Dr. Conley, for repeating that. I have a motion to move the question. Who second? Is there a second? Second, I see a second. All right, so there will be no more discussion of the question. The only thing that we are considering at the moment is whether to move the question. Ted has set that up. This takes a 2/3 vote to move the question. I am starting the clock. The question has been moved. There were 95 yeses, 20 noes, 1 abstention. So now the only thing that we are doing is voting on the question. This will require a 2/3 vote to pass the citizen petition. I am starting the clock. The vote is open.
For supporting scouting. Last call for food.
The motion does not pass. 20 yes, 90 no, 9 abstentions. That is 20, 90, and 9. If you remember, on Monday night, we already considered Articles 27 and 28, which will move us to Article 29. Mr. LaValle, whenever you're ready, I'll start the clock.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. For this article, we have a handout that was on the back table called the Chelmsford Zoning District Key. This will be helpful for you to follow along with on this article. So for Article 29, you will see that this is the continuation for adjusting our zoning maps based on the new zone that we passed at the last town meeting, the CB Light. So as a reminder, for those of you who are new also, in 2022, the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments worked with the planning board to have a study of the zoning conflicts in town. And they did identify a number of them along with options to mitigate them. We can do overlays, we can do changing of zoning maps, we can change the use of the zoning table. If you're looking at changing and expanding options, overlays are a good option. But if you're really looking to to fix some of the zoning conflicts, changing some of the zones underlying the overlays are the better option. So what we did is, if you remember at the last town meeting, we did create this new CB Light zone. It's a solution for at least some of the zoning conflicts that we have in town. It can be used as a replacement for IA in some areas, and it can also be used as a buffer between the IA, which is industrial zone, and residential. It can be used to lessen the negative impacts on other non-IA zones. At the last town meeting, we did apply it to Kate's Corner, and in doing that, we also looked at this Middlesex Mills area as a test case as well to see how that would work. And this proposal is actually coming before you and applying the CB Light zone and some of the zoning changes to the Middlesex Street area near the landing at Chelmsford Mills. One point about the process that we used for Kate's Corner that was quite successful, that we're continuing to use for each of these areas, is that we discuss amongst the board potential changes and models that we want to use. We have informal meetings with the residents of that area to get their input and their feedback on our proposal. Then we switch it to formal public hearings. And for each of those steps of the process, we have all of the material attached to our agendas. We also inform the neighbors and the residents of the area who are being impacted, as well as any direct abutters. So we do send out that information. As a general reminder of the actual zone, we define the ultralight manufacturing. We redefined the light manufacturing and clarified some of the pieces in there. We updated the zoning use table, and the comparison of the uses can be found in that handout as well. All of the required changes to other parts of the zoning, like dimensional requirements, property line, landscaping, street frontage, are also part of those changes that we brought at the last town meeting. So just as a reminder, the highlighted, bolded parts are the areas of these definitions that I really wanted to focus on. So for ultralight manufacturing, these are the specialized high-value production processes. What I'm realizing is that it's not bolded in the handout, but it is on the slides. These are the intricate manufacturing and assembly. These would be things like small-scale wood and metal fabrication, boutique furniture making, things that you would see in a trade area or similar to what you have in Lowell at the Mill 5 area as well. The updated light manufacturing, these are the areas that we distinguished from the ultralight manufacturing. We made sure that we took a look at the processes around this and distinguished them from the ultralight. We also looked at the examples and clarified some of the examples. Those are the highlights from the last town meeting. So this is the current area that we are talking about. So I'm going to direct your attention to the top left corner where it has the CD. This is the general commercial district, primarily retail and commercial areas, restaurants, entertainment, commercial uses, things like that. RM is the multifamily up at the top. The IA portion in pretty much the left, or the right area, sorry, near the waterfront and extending into the Middlesex Mills area is the industrial. RC down at the bottom is the residential C. This is medium density residential. CB off to the right is roadside commercial. That is also high traffic generators, things like that. Down in the left corner, you have the RC and also the CD. The CD is general commercial, and that's where the other mills are also where the establishment is as well. So this gives you a picture of the area that is currently, as it's currently zoned. And these are the changes that we're proposing to these properties. So in the top left, that we propose to remain CD, the general commercial. The general commercial area to the right of that has a lot of residential on the ground, and so we're proposing to change that to what is actually there in residential. Moving in towards the right, that IA portion has a lot of residential as well, so we're proposing to change that from IA to residential. I will skip over all of the CB light area for now, and to the right where you have the very right-hand side of the screen. Most of those RC areas in the CB will remain as is. And then you have a little strip of CB in there that's currently IA, but it's commercial use. So we want to change that from IA to actually have it match what's on the ground in that area. In the IA area near the waterfront, we're proposing to change that to CB Light, and then extending that into the Mills area as well, switching that over to CB Light as well. So in this area, we would essentially remove all of the IA, convert all of those IA areas to either residential or CB Light, depending on what the uses are on the ground. Towards the left, you see a square that says remains RC, and just to the right of that is RM. That is actually a multifamily that is tucked in near the Mills. That is currently IA, and that is being proposed to switch to the multifamily. So this list gives you a summary of all of the parcels we're proposing to rezone, what they are currently, and what they are being proposed to rezone to. So this extends our work in looking at areas around town that have the zoning conflicts. We're looking to match what's on the ground now and to provide some additional opportunities for businesses to come into some of these areas where they wouldn't normally be allowed, because retail is not allowed in IA right now.
One minute.
And so the changing the Mills area over to the CB Light in this specific area would allow more retail space in there. Again, the property owners who came before us were all very supportive. The owner of that mill site is really excited about getting CB Light into his property and being able to provide more opportunities for commercial and retail in that space.
Thank you, Mr. LaValle. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 29.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 29 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends approval of this article.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions, discussion, debate.
Chris Bowman, Precinct 10. If you could start the clock, Mr. Moderator.
Yes.
Thank you. So I would like to suggest something to the town meeting, the entire body. I've been listening to a lot of people talking about the zoning amendments and how it's not easily discernible, and that there have been a lot of zoning amendments over the last few years that are sweeping amendments. So recently I came across the SJC on a case where a town put a 2-year moratorium on zoning amendments and large construction projects that were adverse to the town's character. The SJC said that the zoning, that it was permissible for the town to do this for 2 reasons. One of which was it was a temporary measure. It was 2 years to conduct a comprehensive study for a specific purpose. in order to ensure that the character of the town and the town's neighborhoods would be protected and preserved. So my suggestion covers the remaining zoning articles, 29 to 34, that I would recommend that we put all the zoning amendments on hold, these and any future, for the purpose of conducting a comprehensive study in order to protect and preserve the residential character of this town. Now, as long as that, thank you, well, as long as that is a limited situation for this very specific purpose that concerns everyone in the town, then it's permissible by the SJC, and given what's taken place over the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, I believe it's warranted so we don't lose the character and the culture that Chelmsford is. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Virginia Crocker Timmons, Precinct 3. You can start the clock. I'm speaking again in my capacity as the Vinyl Square Strategic Action Plan Committee Chair. The committee voted unanimously to recommend support of this article. We conducted briefings and discussions with the Planning Board Chair. I personally followed all of the public hearings and the input that was received there. And the committee thought that the Planning Board did a really nice job in the thought process behind this and in the vetting process as well. It does an awful lot to protect the residents who are currently in the North Village. And in addition to that, as the speaker stated, it also does a lot to give the current property owners more flexibility in terms of the diversity of the types of businesses that can come into the North Village area that we would welcome in the North Village area. Things like small eateries that can't go in those buildings right now. So again, the committee asked for your support in this warrant article. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Ginger Skoog, Precinct 5. Mr. Moderator, through you to the speaker. You mentioned here specifically the improvement for the business owners. Thank you for putting that back up. And I wanted to just clarify for those residential, for the current IA area in the top center up there, where you are proposing to rezone it to residential. Is that advantageous to those residents?
It is.
Okay.
Yep.
So when they, based on the residential that is there and the rezoning, would this add the ability to develop more residential in there, or is that area already kind of, I'm not overly familiar with that particular side.
It would essentially allow the residential areas that are currently residential to remain residential and continue to be turned over as residential.
Okay. Perfect. And then, and the same goes for the small section that would become multifamily, that it would be able to remain and be future as multifamily in perpetuity?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it also protects the residences who are in there, because for any IA project, for any industrial project, if you have an industrial project abutting a residential property, you have to have an increased setback.
Okay.
If that property is zoned IA, you do not have to have that increased setback.
Because it's by right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joel Luna, Precinct 10. I have a question for the speaker, and that is that the previous speaker made reference to the question of suspending zoning amendments until it can be evaluated what the effect is going to be on the neighborhood character, et cetera, of the town. Could you describe how, in this process, the neighborhood character and the character of the town is considered?
Sure. In all of the changes that we do in the zoning bylaws in the process, we talk to the residents, we talk to the property owners in the area. We look at intended and unintended consequences of all of the things that we're trying to change and update. In most of these changes that we're making, we're trying to increase protection for the current character of the neighborhoods, which is one of the things we're doing here by changing the IA zone to CB light. It is really more in line with the current character of that neighborhood than the IA district. So by putting a moratorium on these changes, we would actually be lessening the protections of the residents in these areas.
All right, thank you. You can start the clock. This whole effort and the Kate's Corner effort and other efforts, again, are based on the desire to resolve zoning conflicts that have been identified to this town by NIMCOG, the Northern Middlesex Council of Governments. So these actions are not intended to rezone as far as replanning the town. It's really to try to fit what is there, fit the zoning better to what is there. So largely, these activities that the board's been involved in is for the purpose of improving the character of the town. Furthermore, the board has also initiated a managed growth strategy. Well, I won't say we were encouraged, highly encouraged to do that. So we took that on, which is to take a longer range view of how this town is going to approach its zoning related to its economic development, to the character of the town, and so forth. So these are all things that are happening now. So I think as the speaker mentioned, actually trying to suspend anything that we're doing would only hamper the ability to sort of preserve the character of our town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Please don't trip on my watch.
I will try not to. Thank you. Michelle Tang, Precinct 7. Just a question or more of a clarification.
Could you repeat that, ma'am? I did.
Sorry, Michelle Tang, Precinct 7.
Thank you.
At the information night, you actually mentioned that upper corner that's changing to CBLT, or the upper part. Could you explain why that was important? Because I thought that was something that really pushed me in the right direction. So if you could explain that, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for reminding me about that. The upper right-hand corner are properties that are primarily railroad properties, but they're all right now zoned industrial, and they're all right next to the river and waterway. So if the railroad ever goes down, sells that property, there could be potentially IA uses that come in that might be detrimental. Of course, there are going to be conservation and wetlands protections, but this adds another layer of protection on top of all of that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ted, I'm going to call for a vote. This is a 2/3 vote needed for passing. The article passes 118 for, 1 against, 0 abstentions. Before we move to the next article, I've been asked to remind everybody about the library book sale, which is a lot more fun than this, which will be the next 2 days at the Town Hall Gym. All right, Mr. LaValle,
Thank you.
Article 30.
So Article 30 are some proposed changes to our SAOD overlay, the Community Enhancement and Investment Overlay District. This is essentially a zoning district that is laid on top of the underlying zoning that provides additional opportunities and options for developers and property owners to come in with a little bit more advanced projects. So in some of our recent projects that have come in under this overlay, we've noticed some inconsistencies in the bylaw that we'd like to change, some gaps that we'd like to fill to protect the town a little bit more. The first one is in section 195, 111, applicability. We currently, in number 2, consider the gross square footage of the use so that it does not exceed the original use. But we want to change that to add "and the square footage of the building footprint." And the reason why is because our current bylaw, which only considers the gross floor area, allows both of these conditions by right. So a 2-floor small square footprint can be changed by right into the larger footprint building. And that is something that we have encountered as a problem in some of the areas and some of the projects that we've seen. So what we're proposing is to include the footprint piece of it as well, so that this is what is allowed by right, and anything larger footprint would be a special permit only. The next change that we're proposing is in 195, 112, to add the underlined text here, where a combination of primary uses requires a special permit. What we're seeing is that while there are many single uses that come in, we're now starting to see a lot of multi-use projects coming before us. And while the single uses may be something we want to enhance the town with, what we're seeing is that there may be some combination of uses that might need a little bit more scrutiny. One example is a residential use along with an indoor contractor's yard. So those are some mixture of uses that may be fine together, but we want to be able to take a look at it a little bit more closely to make sure that any safety and enhancement mitigations might be taken into account for the project. So that's what we're proposing there. In section 118, and in the next slide, in both A and B, what we're now asking to add is that the board have the ability to ask for data, if needed, in order to help in our decision, in order to potentially recommend mitigation measures and things like that. One example is a car wash with vacuums running at night. We want to make sure that they are doing the technical analysis required to measure those noise levels and be able to present that to us if needed. While we don't have control over the environmental protection standards, what this would allow us is to allow us to ask the applicant to provide the details of any environmental protection that they need to put on their project based on the EPA guidelines or conservation guidelines, things like that. So we wouldn't be able to necessarily have that as a condition, but it would allow us to ask for more data to be able to work with the applicants a little bit more. In 195, 119, one of the things that we've noticed is that our current bylaw only includes buildings over 75 years of age. It does not include structures like rock walls, things like that. So we added the word structure in here in case there are some walls or some other structures that might be out there that we would want to consider as recommending to the Historical Commission for review and comment. The next one in this is oftentimes what we find is that an application comes to us, we have to ask a lot of questions throughout the hearings. We have to make sure that we are asking the right questions to enable us to determine whether or not they're meeting our standards. What this will allow us to do is ask for that information up front. So when an applicant comes in, they present this narrative to us that essentially lays out how they're proposing to meet our standards. That will speed up the hearings, it'll speed up the process, it'll give more information to the residents that need the information for their debate or their questions to get answered, and it will speed up the process and provide a lot more transparency throughout the process. The next one is in 195-119, again, the application review procedures. We realized that there are no triggers for the review of these for stormwater changes or site elevation changes. And we've had a couple cases where this would have been helpful to come before the board again. So we're adding stormwater and site elevation, which may not have been problematic in the past when these bylaws were developed. So those are the changes that we are proposing.
Sorry about that. Just getting clarification. Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 30.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 30 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends this article.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions, discussion, debate.
Christine McNamara, Precinct 8. On 195-119, the general requirements, I believe that was slide 175. I have a question.
I'm having trouble hearing you. I apologize.
Okay. Slide 175, a question. Would trees or landscapes that have been in place over 75 years be covered by that?
Trees I don't believe would be covered by this.
So it has to all just be buildings?
Buildings and structures.
Yeah. Is there any protection for that in town as far as you know?
For trees, there are no protections.
Is that something you would consider?
Yeah. We do, if it's in the Conservation Commission jurisdiction, they do consider it as well. If it's outside of their jurisdiction, we do look at the number of trees that are being taken down in the site plan review. And as a matter of course, we, as a planning board, at least the current planning board, we do tend to shy away from taking down too many trees, and we try and minimize the amount of trees that are being removed from the plans. And if trees are removed, we try to ask them to replace them as if at all possible.
Could you wait for 1 second? If you have any, sir, if you have anything to add, please come to the microphone to do so in the future. Please.
Okay. Specifically because it's a 75-year consideration, and that just made me think of old growth trees that would maybe be considered differently than, something that's newer and that could be more easily replaced.
We can look into that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8. While we're on this slide, as I was listening to it at the pre-meeting and thinking about it. 75 years old is 1951, and I know that we're not voting on changing that number, but can you give some background as to the significance of it? Because that doesn't seem very historically significant.
I did get some background since the pre-town meeting, and 75 years is an industry standard for historical, and that's what the Chelmsford Historic Commission uses as a guideline.
Thank you. Is there anybody else? All right. I am going to call for a vote. Ted is ready. I'm starting the clock. Clock is started. Thank you. This requires a 2/3 majority. The article passes 113 yes, 3 no, 2 abstentions. I want to say something before you begin the next article. After Article 34, we're going to have one more thing we need to discuss, so please don't rush out. Mr. LaValle, if you would start with Article 31.
Okay, Article 31 is related to the definition of boarding house. Based on the discussions from the last town meeting regarding the definition of family and some discussions afterwards, we realized that there was some overlap and some lack of clarity in the definition based on the updated definition of family. So what we're proposing here is to provide additional clarity in the boarding house definition to also include state licensing reference, since the state does license boarding houses, reword for additional clarity, and to provide descriptions that provide distinctions from the definition of family. And the current and proposed definitions are listed here on this slide. That is my time.
I didn't even get a drink. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 31.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 31 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends Article 31.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions, discussion, debate.
Nancy Arroway, Precinct 8. Mr. Moderator, through you to the presenter. Just a question. The proposed wording applies this definition to 4 or more lodgers, and the previous definition applies it to more than 4 lodgers. Do we know if we have households in Chelmsford that will be negatively affected by the number 4? And if so, have they been notified to provide comment on this?
I don't believe they would be, because one of the things that we added in this is that it is a facility licensed under the state boarding house licensing guidelines. So unless that household is already licensed as a boarding house, they would not be impacted.
The point is, under today's definition, the current definition, having 4 boarders is not considered a boarding house. Under the new definition, having 4 boarders is considered a boarding house.
It is not, because in the definition, we have a facility licensed under the state law and all of the rest of the detail. So that's one of the reasons why we added that detail and the licensing in there, to narrowly define what a boarding house is.
So a household that had 4 boarders that existed today could continue to have 4 boarders tomorrow and would not be required to have licensing. Is that what you're saying? It's just a household?
Correct. They would not be considered a boarding house under this because they're not licensed by the state. So the state might consider it an illegal boarding house.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? This will require a 2/3 majority, and I am going to start the clock. Voting is open. Voting usually opens before I can manage to start the clock. So this 30 seconds is really like 33 seconds. The motion passes 111 yes, 5 no, 2 abstention. All right. We are on to Article 32.
So again, Article 32 has some background from the last fall town meeting. Based on some recommendations provided at town meeting and some discussions after that, it was suggested that we may want to take a look at including bed and breakfasts as an additional use in the use table in town to provide additional opportunities and commercial opportunities and potentially expand the commercial base. So what we did is we discussed this at the planning board, thought it was a good idea, took a look at what zones we might want to put it in, and didn't receive any negative feedback from our public hearing. We received a few comments about how this would provide additional, like I mentioned, commercial tax base. People seem to be supportive of it. So what we're proposing on this article is to define the bed and breakfast as we have listed here. Again, it is defined at the state level, so we're aligning our definition with the state. We are also distinguishing it in our definition, distinguishing it from the boarding house, motel, hotel, or dwelling unit occupied by a family or single housekeeping unit. And we are adding the use line in here and allowing it by special permit only in the commercial districts. There was some discussion about whether we want to expand it into potential residential areas, but we wanted to take it slow at first, see how it played out in the commercial areas, see if there's a large interest in it, see if there's no interest, and then discuss potentially adjusting it down the road based on what we see as potential projects coming in. And that is what I have on that article.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 32.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 32 by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends Article 32.
Thank you. I will now entertain questions, debate, discussion.
Scott Davidson, Precinct 3. Do we have a definition of breakfast? Is that like limited to a certain time of day or certain foods? It says only breakfast may be served. How do we establish what breakfast is?
Pretty standard definition, I think. It's also, that's part of the definition that the state uses, so it's pretty widely accepted.
Okay. And also, it says owner occupied or used as the owner's primary residence. So if I'm the owner and I have a second residence in Florida, I can still run a bed and breakfast as long as the Chelmsford residence is my primary residence. If I'm in Florida, I can still run it. Is that right?
Potentially, yeah, because they would need to be there as part of the property.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for adjusting the microphone.
I can't reach up there. I am definitely height challenged. Nancy Arroway, Precinct 8. Mr. Moderator, through you to the presenter. I guess I have some questions on what the thinking was behind this. And the first one is, where did you see this being implemented? I mean, in terms of what areas in town? I see you have it in the mall district, you know, and I can't quite imagine a primary residence in the mall district.
We actually have quite a few, as you've seen in many of our zoning maps. We have plenty of residential properties in odd zones like industrial and things like that. So we figured that would be a good start since we are not able to fix all of the zoning conflicts in town right away. We're able to see some of these areas and if it might take hold.
Yeah. So, you know, I look at the non-conforming residential and industrial, and what you don't tend to see are big old houses. And those are the things that typically get turned into bed and breakfast, because you need great big bedrooms that can get bathrooms attached to them. So I'm asking where do you see these things that could foreseeably be used as a bed and breakfast in your commercial areas?
The example I gave you was industrial, but we do have plenty of single-family, multifamily homes in commercial districts in town that are large enough to support a bed and breakfast. So we wanted to give the option. It may or may not work, but we wanted to start small. We did discuss extending it into residential areas, but we felt that we wanted to take it slow. We wanted to see if it took off. We wanted to see if it was going to work, and then potentially expand it into the residential areas down the road.
Yeah, you may as well start the clock. So when you think about the type of properties that are used for bed and breakfasts, what you typically find is, you know, the big old Victorians and colonials that have big bedrooms that can have bathrooms attached to it, that have become too big for the owner's individual use. This definition requires that it be a residence and that the owners are operating it. To put this only in our commercial areas and to not allow it in our residential where we actually do have that type of property looks an awful lot to me like we're simply trying to prevent this use in town, because this does not support that use. In addition, the one thing that really does matter from a zoning standpoint for a bed and breakfast is parking. And this does nothing at all to address parking requirements for a B&B based on the number of bedrooms that you're going to have, thank you. And we do have the areas in our zoning code that address parking and how much do you need for what use. And that should be addressed here as well. My opinion, guys, this needs to go back to committee and be rethought. It's just not baked yet. I'm really glad that you're taking it on. I think it needs to be. We have a town that sits near industrial areas, sits near a university. We have the opportunity
1 minute.
to have, yes, thank you. We have the opportunity to have this type of a business and this type of a business be successful. But this zoning design isn't going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lauren Roberts, Precinct 8. So one of the, to the moderator, to the speaker, one of the prior speakers brought up a point, and I had asked a question the other night about this, not realizing that Chelmsford doesn't allow Airbnb or Vrbo, yet we still actually have people renting them out online. This feels kind of like a loophole a little bit, and if you can kind of explain that to me, because if the prior speaker had said you don't have to be there, you could be down in Florida for 5 months of the year, it still would be an owner's primary residence, and they could still rent it out. They don't have to serve breakfast, they may serve breakfast. So someone could rent out their house, not serve breakfast, and not be there. That feels like an Airbnb kind of.
So again, the definition based on the state is that the owner has to be there when it is in operation. So so for example, if the owner does go to Florida for 6 months out of the year, they likely would not be able to operate the bed and breakfast for those 6 months. They would have to be operating it when they're there.
So does the definition as written protect from that? Because I see some definition.
Yeah, the state's definition is pretty strict.
So by having it defined as is, there's no like loophole there for what I guess the town probably voted on at some point before, not to have Airbnb.
Yes.
Christine McNamara, Precinct 8. So this was brought up in our neighborhood years ago where somebody wanted to do this kind of a setup, and it was unanimously disapproved, or nobody was in support of it. And I'm wondering if you actually are hearing from specific residents who are wanting to do this, or whether this is just like, oh, here's an idea of how to increase revenue in town. And then also I'm wondering about how, I think we've all read about what Airbnbs do sometimes to neighborhoods and communities and real estate and whatnot, and how this is potentially different than that, and how it contributes to the town in a positive way. I'm not seeing that.
So it was brought up to us by a town meeting rep at the last town meeting. So it was not something that the planning board was trying to do for increased revenue. It was something that a town meeting rep brought up as something that might be good for the residences to have a bed and breakfast in town. One of the reasons why we didn't go all in on the residential areas right now is because we don't know what those unintended consequences are for the residential areas. So we wanted to start slow. We wanted to start in the commercial areas in town. That there are plenty of commercial areas that have these types of houses. There's one on 110 near the Chelmsford Mall. There's a, right in front of the Kohl's, there's a single-family home that would be a perfect bed and breakfast. There are plenty of properties in town that could fit this. And so we wanted to start small, see how it works, and then potentially expand into residential areas that want to have bed and breakfasts in their area.
In my experience staying in bed and breakfasts, the last place I would want to be is across from Chelmsford Mall. I'm sorry. I mean, we have hotels that are nicely situated and with amenities, and I don't understand why this would be appealing to anyone.
It just gives additional options for residences, for property owners, and for people in town.
I'm also concerned about the idea of this starting and then spreading into residential areas, because I think that changes the character of the town and how families feel about people coming and going, et cetera. So thank you. I don't support it.
Ken Tassi, Precinct 2. In the state, and I noticed it's not listed there, does this allow off-street parking? Does it have to be parking on the site? How many cars, spaces do they have to have? Is there a limitation on cars?
So in our, this is one of the reasons why we're focusing on the commercial district. The commercial district has a lot of those parking restrictions and parking information. So it would be determined by the commercial district that it would go in.
Okay. If this does end up going into residential, I would be totally against off-street parking. I mean, on-street parking. I just wouldn't want that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Eric Salerno, Precinct 3. Question for the presenter. Did the planning board do any research with the bed and breakfast industry organizations about what percentage of those businesses have only 3 bedrooms available or more?
No, we did not.
And I commend the planning board for looking for, I guess, another additional business opportunity to welcome visitors to the town. I also wanted to point out, though, that I would consider the enemy of zoning to be ambiguity, and in the Mass General Law section that you referenced, they distinguish between a bed and breakfast establishment and a bed and breakfast home, and your definition leans towards bed and breakfast home, but then you specifically reference a bed and breakfast establishment is not a boarding house, and you continue the
Sir, is
definition.
there a question?
So I guess you can start the clock briefly because I just have a small recommendation. If this ends up being passed, I'd suggest or recommend that the planning board consider clarifying that it's a bed and breakfast home that you're referring to, and you could potentially make an adjustment to the number of bedrooms to come up with Chelmsford's definition of what bed and breakfast is. And obviously if it doesn't pass, you could consider making those types of revisions and bringing it back. Thank you.
Brian Latina, Precinct 4. Mr. Moderator, through you to the speaker. Who in the state presented this to you? Can I ask?
Who in the state
Yeah,
presented
you
it?
said you picked this up from the state. Was it one of our state committees that we work with?
No, no one. A
No one.
town meeting rep approached us after the last town meeting, and we looked at the state definition in our research.
Okay. And did we visit any of the local towns that have these kind of facilities to see where they have them and what they're doing?
We did not, but you can easily get that online, so we did some of that research online.
And can you show us the map of the locations that says PB, PB, PB? Can you show us that map? That's part of the town meeting procedures.
I do not have that.
It says in the finance book, as part of town meeting procedure, that the presentation, zoning bylaw presentations by the sponsor must show a map denoting the existing zoning and proposed change zoning, including definitions of zoning and the explanation of the changes. So we're missing the map.
I've actually tried to show maps in the past on here, and it's too small to actually see. So we have not done that.
So none of the residents would have seen this yet. You can start the clock. Mr. Moderator, I'm finding that more and more we're listening to the state through the sub-state agencies. We got rid of the Massachusetts county government, except for the prisons, I believe. So we don't have any voted county organizations that consolidate our towns together and kind of work together. Instead, we have state-sponsored organizations that help us put a sidewalk down the middle of North Road and then make us turn left tight and put a stop sign so you can't get through it and yellow things on it. They don't paint our off-ramps and on-ramps, these state agencies that provide us with our own money back. And what I keep seeing is they're changing our definition of family. They're adding bed and breakfasts, which I've been around the country, and you don't want those next to your house, trust me on that. Parking is a huge problem. Southern California, the ADUs that everybody has, you have no parking. There is no place for you to park. So they tear out the lawns and they pave them over. It's awful. It's awful. Before we do something to the town, or I guess we're almost the city of Chelmsford based on the state telling us what to do now, I suggest maybe that we go back to our basic procedures and follow through with some of those. Show us a map of if it's my house that you're talking about, or if it's one of the folks in the room here. And we probably should also tell our residents what's going on. You know, if the state is telling us through the agencies that they put up and we pay for, so we can get roads and streets and pothole fills. I know we have to say yes to them all the time, but we have no king.
Thank you.
Anita Tanini, Precinct 10. Question to the speaker. Currently, I live in RB district. If my next door neighbor decided to put in Airbnb or bread and breakfast, wanted to operate bread and breakfast currently, what mechanism do I have to stop it?
Since it's not in the use table, it would not be allowed anywhere in town.
So I could fight that.
Yes.
Okay. And what this is doing is just defining it and putting no in all the residentials, correct?
Correct. It's only allowing it in the commercial districts and not in residential.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lindsay Sieber, Precinct 11. I want to clarify, in this article, it says, quote, as defined in, and then lists the Mass General Law. In the previous article, it references the facilities licensed under Mass General Law. So given that change in wording, I wanted to clarify, would bed and breakfast require licensing?
I believe that bed and breakfasts do have to be licensed by the state in order to be considered a bed and breakfast by the state. So yes, it would.
Okay. My other question is, since this is an additional definition, does that mean we do not allow bed and breakfast today?
Correct. If a use is not specifically defined in our use table, it is not allowed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas Fall, Precinct 7. I move the question.
There is a motion. There was a second. That hand I'll take as a second. Thank you so much. Thank you. Mr. Clancy points out that I was just about to call for a vote unless anybody wants to do an extra vote. Does anybody mind if we just go to the actual vote? Good to go. This requires a 2/3 vote, and I am setting the clock, and Ted is setting the vote, and I'm starting the clock. 2/3 required. And thank you, Mr. Clancy. We're voting on the article itself. The article itself, we're not voting on moving the question. Do we want to revote because of the confusion? The article failed. There were 65 yes, 45 no, and 3 abstentions. All right. Moving on to Article 33.
So for Article 33, as part of the changes that we made for the CB Light District, we added accessory parking lots to commercial and industrial and made those special permit by the planning board. What we realized when we went back to the use table that the parking garages in commercial and industrial are also special permit, but by the ZBA. And also accessory parking garages, industrial 17A, are also the planning board special permit. So what we're trying to do here is align all of them to the same body for special permitting. So all of the parking lots, parking garages, both accessory and primary, would be coming to the planning board for special permitting rather than some going to ZBA, some going to planning board. So trying to simplify this. That's it.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 33.
Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 33 by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends Article 33.
I will entertain questions, discussion, debate. All right. This will also require a 2/3 vote, which Ted has just set up, and I am starting the clock. 2/3 vote required. The article passes 113 yes, misread that, 1 no, 1 abstention. I would remind you that before we get to the last article, after we are finished with this last article, I would not entertain a motion to adjourn because we have one more piece of business. If we could move to Article 34.
So for Article 34, this is mainly a housekeeping article. When we've been reviewing our regulations and bylaws, we realized that some of our minimum depth tables have 0 as the minimum depth, while some others have NA. And so what we're proposing here is to make everything the same across the board. So anywhere that there is a minimum depth of 0, make it an NA, because a depth of 0 is essentially not applicable depth. So I'm not going to go through all of the tables. They're in your slides and handouts, but changing all of the 0s to NAs.
Thank you. Does the Finance Committee have a recommendation?
Finance Committee unanimously recommends approval of Article 34.
Thank you. Does the Select Board have a recommendation?
The Select Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 34 by a 5-0 vote.
Thank you. Does the Planning Board have a recommendation?
The Planning Board unanimously recommends approval of Article 34.
Thank you. This is going to require a 2/3 vote. Ted? Oh, sorry. My bad. I will now entertain questions, discussion, debate. I still mention it. All right. Now I will call for a vote. I have started the timer. This requires a 2/3 to pass. This passes. We have 104 in favor, 1 against. We have one more piece of business. Mr. Cohen, I would like you to take a moment, if you would, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting representatives, 19 and a half years ago, at the 2006 Fall Annual Town Meeting, I was introduced to you as the incoming town manager. I cannot believe how fast 19 and a half years have passed. I want to thank you for your support during the past 2 decades. I also want to thank the department heads, town employees, and volunteer town officials that I've been blessed to serve with. Although we were not perfect, and I certainly was not perfect, we did not always agree. We all sought to serve the best interests of the town of Chelmsford. I'm never comfortable talking about myself, so I think I want to couch my final comments on what we did here in this hall at town meeting. And it just made me feel good when sort of preparing this. At this town meeting, we considered funding for affordable housing at Highland Avenue, Manahan Street, Littleton Road, Smith Street, and Princeton Street. And many of those have been completed, and the others that I've mentioned that haven't been completed are underway. We supported economic development in this community on 129, Drum Hill, and other areas. We preserved our precious historic properties such as the Town Hall, which is now the Chelmsford Center for the Arts, and the North Town Hall. We acquired numerous pieces of conservation land, such as Sunny Meadow Farm, the beaches at Hart Pond, Sheehan Farm, Warren Pole, and most recently, the Coolest property. We acquired and created a representative and modern and appropriate public works facility at 9 Alpha Road, as opposed to that leaning trailer that was over at Richardson Road. We were able to construct a new fire department headquarters to replace the one in the center that was being held up by boards, and it outlived its useful life. And we also, and most recently, as you approved, we renovated and expanded and are replacing 3 satellite fire stations. The completed one up in North Chelmsford, and the 2 that have a groundbreaking ceremony in 2 weeks up at Roberts Field and in South Chelmsford. We acquired the ownership of and substantially improved the condition of the Chelmsford Forum. We improved the ball fields and playgrounds at Roberts Field, Varney Playground, and Highland Park. We opened and we created parking for the Bruce Freeman Rail Trail. We acquired the much needed and now so valuable municipal parking area in the town center that up until that time was under basically a day-to-day license. We acquired the much used and really beneficial to our youth turf fields at the McCarthy and the high school and the new track at the McCarthy School. We constructed and saved paradise, the parking lots over at the McCarthy School, which will have a ribbon cutting within the next few weeks. We renovated the kitchens at many of the schools, the high school, the Parker, the McCarthy School. And then in the area of energy sustainability, we were the first, in that first group of communities to adopt the stretch energy code and the additional codes since then. We purchased and installed solar electricity panels. We bought our solar from a solar farm in 2008, so all of our town power since that time has been powered by solar. And then we added the ones at all of our school and DPW buildings. And then we even leased the land at the old Swain Road landfill into what's now a solar farm that provides not only green electricity, but revenue to the community. We also helped our residents, which was always the basis of all this. For example, we did the electricity aggregation that saved them money over the default rate for almost, over 15 years, rather than, than if they had just remained and we had not acted on the National Grid default offer. And we even did some other green initiatives, eliminated the single-use plastic bags, because if we were waiting for the state to do that, we'd still be waiting for it today. Styrofoam containers, the straws upon request. And we also, as was noted in a lot of comments tonight, we complied and I think did the prudent thing both financially and practically and wisely. And I believe we, meaning all of us, and most notably many of these by the planning board, such as achieving a sensible plan for the MBTA zoning bylaw that, as you can see, has not adversely impacted our community, and yet we've seen the suffering that some of our neighboring and expenses and aggravation that our neighboring communities are still dealing with on that. And again, we also comply with the state mandated ADU zoning bylaw. And even currently, we're in the process of planning for a new middle school. Since after 50 plus years, it's time for Chelmsford to consider it again. And most notably, as we saw tonight, we introduced and successfully implemented electronic voting at town meeting. And other initiatives, again, if you think 20 years at these things, and even changing the name of the Board of Selectmen to Select Board, that all came through this room. And even noticeably, we saw it again tonight, we accepted streets that we always thought had been accepted. And probably most notably, we resolved the correct spelling of Stedman Street. But in all seriousness, the things I'm most proud about is how we came together almost 20 years ago, and we weathered what's known as the Great Recession, came through that, and then in more recent years, we pulled together and came through the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll never forget those town meetings ever at the high school gymnasium with the spacing and everything else. But I think most importantly, we left the community and I'm leaving here, having felt comfortable that we put the community prepared for the future. We see the struggles that we're going through, and yes, we'll have challenges ahead, but we're a community right now that can take on what's in front of us. We have a AAA bond rating, we have adequate reserves. In summary, I want to thank the Chelmsford community for your support during the past 19 and a half years. I have been blessed to have worked in such a great community with, again, my talented coworkers, dedicated volunteers, and supportive residents. When I arrived just after the town's 350th anniversary, I recognized that we were all here for a brief portion of the town's history. My goal was and has always been to do the best that I could to make the community better for those who will come after us. I am pleased that together we did that. Chelmsford is a great community and has a promising future. Thank you for allowing me to be part of your community. Thank you.
Seeing no further business before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.